Again, good morning, grade 10. We are in the middle of the discussion and we need to finish this. My mic, alright. It's okay, Margin, no worries. I understand. We need to finish this simply because we have a lot of activities that follows, right? Structures produced by deformation. With the deformation we had discussed last week, this is now the continuation, right? Most of the structures resulting from deformation are planar structures and their orientation can be described based on how they are positioned with respect to horizontal plane. Remember that these actually moves in different directions. Okay? It depends upon how or what are the positions they're actually trying to portray, right? Strike, okay? These are the basics, right? Okay, strike is the compass direction, okay? Recon from the north, okay? Of the line formed by the intersection of the inclined plane and the horizontal plane. Strike, okay? Okay, strike and strike, okay? Dip, okay? These are the basic terminologies. Okay? Dip is an angle between the inclined plane and the horizontal plane, okay? The direction of dip is perpendicular to the strike, okay? Dip, those are dip, okay? Joints are natural cracks on rocks or on the rocks produced by brittle deformation. The rocks on both sides of the joint do not slide past each other because these are joints. Joints are formed due to tensional forces or tensional stress or forces in brittle rocks. It can form when the rock cools and contracts, right? Or when there is a decrease in pressure from overlying rocks as a result of erosion, okay? Like joints, faults also are planar structures resulting from a brittle deformation, but there is a sliding between rocks, okay? If there is a sliding between rocks, then tendency is you're actually creating now a fault, okay? A fault is where there is a sliding recent geologic times is considered as an active fault. If it is in recent time, geologic recent times, it is considered as an active fault, right? This fault can move again in the future and generate earthquakes. Remember that there are a lot of causes of earthquakes, right? One of these are the movements of the tectonic plates or this fault or faulting, okay? This fault can move again in the future and generate earthquakes. Faults are classified based on the movement of rocks with respect to one another. Okay? It depends upon. They're actually their names or they're actually named based on their movement. Okay. In an inclined fault, okay, the block on rock or the block of rocks on top of the fault is called the hanging wall. Okay. On top is the hanging wall, while the block below is called the footwall. If it is in top, it is considered as the hanging wall, right? If it is below, it is considered as the footwall. When the hanging wall moves down, okay, again, when the hanging wall moves down with respect to the footwall, it forms a normal fault. I will let you see the illustration, okay, the comparison between these, right, later after this. If the hanging wall moves up, okay, again, if the hanging wall moves down, it is actually a normal fault, okay? But when the hanging wall moves up, it forms a reverse fault, okay? A reverse fault with an inclination of 35 degrees, if it has a 35 degrees angle, it is called a thrust fault. Okay, if it has again a 35 degrees inclination. These faults are also classified as deep slip fault. Deep slip fault because again a reverse and normal fault actually what collide. Okay, they bump to each other and they tend to dip one of the sides. Okay, it could be the hanging wall or it could be the footwall, right? When blocks slide, this is sliding rather than passing to each other. This is sliding, okay? Pass to each other. The fault is called strike slip fault. Strike, they're actually striking. There are two types of strike slip fault based on the relative movement of blocks. Remember that we are actually naming them based on their movements, right? When a block on the top, on the opposite side of the fault moves towards the right, if it is moving towards the right, it is called the right lateral strike slip fault. Right lateral movements, okay? Right lateral strike slip fault because they are actually striking towards the right, okay? When the block opposite the fault moves to the left, okay? If it's moving towards the left, yes, MD.
Why do they move here? Why do rocks move?
They
Why
need
do
to
they
move.
create like a
All right. The movements of these faults are actually based on the geologic activities of the Earth, right? Remember, we had discussed this one in the introductory discussion or introductory topic that these tectonic plates are moving because of the volcanic activity or the activity of the magma underneath the asthenosphere. Okay? Because of this movement, tendency is there are a lot of changes on the surface of the earth or the crusts. Sure, what happened if there is no movement of the crust? Tendency is a lot of species of plants and animals will stay at ease. They will not evolve. The evolution of plants and animals is based on the movement of earth. Okay? Stagnation will give us an idea that these species might not survive in the near future. The survival of the species depends on the movement of the earth or the cycle of the earth. We have a lot of cycles, but the mother cycle there is the water cycle or the water cycle. That's the reason behind. Okay. A lot of scientists also tend to think about how these movements occur. What gives us this force? Those are the questions, right? What gives us this force? Why Earth needs to move? How Earth moves? Okay, those are the questions, right? Remember the first law of motion by Newton. What is the first law of motion by Newton again? Anybody? Grade 10? The first law of motion by Newton? The first one, the important one, and my favorite one also. The first law of motion is the law of inertia. Okay. Are you familiar with the law of inertia? Anybody? How about Margie? Anybody?
not yet, sir?
Okay. The law of inertia, we supposed to be, this is actually discussed in grade 7, I think. The law of inertia states that an object at rest remains at rest. An object in motion remains in motion in a straight line unless acted by the imbalanced force or the unbalanced force. Okay? Meaning to say, if an object moves in a straight line, it will actually continuously move in a straight line unless there is an unbalanced force or an outside force or external force that will act on the body to stop. So this is what is happening now to Earth. Okay? After the Big Bang Theory, okay, after the explosion, okay, this explosion is radioactive, and this also explosion gives the movement of, or the planetary movements rather. Okay? Planetary movements including Earth. Okay. Because there is no external force that acting on it to stop, it will continuously move unless there is an external force that will act on it to stop. That is based on the first law of motion by Newton, the law of inertia. Okay, so these movements are still the effects of the law of inertia or the explosion of the Big Bang theory. Are you still with me? Are we good? Good.
Yes.
That's great. Okay, that's a good question, MD. I want you to ask also questions. I want to hear from Holly, from Reina, and the rest. I have only 4 students here. Okay, MD, Reina, Holly, and of course, Margie. So, most probably, these are just the attendants, right? Okay. Again, if the movement of fault moves to the left side, okay, it is referred to as the left lateral strike slip fault because the movement is going to the left. Okay. If the movement of blocks along the fault plane is diagonal, okay, diagonal, if it is diagonal, meaning to say that it can either be left or right, okay, it is called the oblique slip fault. Oblique. The movement now is oblique. Okay, there are some movements in the left and some movements on the right. Okay, these are now the okay. These are now the illustration, as you can see. Okay, this is the normal fault. Okay, remember the foot wall, okay, and the hanging wall. Okay, the hanging wall is actually moving what? Down in opposite direction. Okay, as a result, you're actually what? Pulling each other. Okay, on opposite sides. That's a normal fault. Okay, how about the reverse fault? The reverse fault, okay, the hanging wall is moving upwards. Okay, they're squeezing each other. Okay, they're moving upwards. But the angle is 60, if it is in 60 degrees, 60 degrees, meaning to say that this is in a reverse fault. But if the reverse fault has actually 30 degrees, I think this is not 30 degrees, wait. Let me check. Reverse fault. 35 degrees. Correct. Okay. It is between 30 degrees to 35 degrees. Okay. Still the same. It is called the thrust fault. Okay. This is not the thrust fault. From the reverse fault, you look at the angle. Okay. You look at the angle, it's almost 90 degrees. If it is 90 degrees, it is straight. But we cannot move something in a straight direction or because it will just bump each other. Okay. But if the angle is in 30 degrees to 35 degrees, it is considered as the thrust fault. And the strike slip fault. This is the strike slip fault. A lateral strike slip fault. If it is moving on the right, it is called the right lateral strike slip fault. If it is in the left, moving in the left, it is called the left lateral strike slip fault. But if it is moving, it's in a right and a left direction or mixed, it is called what? The oblique slip fault. This one. Okay. Oblique slip fault. The movement is going to the right and going to the left. Okay. Folds are produced by the deformation of ductile materials. Okay. Folds are contortions of rocks or rock layers, rather, forming a wave-like curves. The hinge line or fold axis is a part of the fold where the curvature is greatest. This is how your mountains are actually formed. Okay, they're actually formed through folds. Okay, the limbs are the sides of the folds with the least curvature or the curve. Okay? When there is a fold, there's always a curve on it. The eggshell plane contains the cold axis of each folded layer. The folds can be described based on the orientation of these parts. Okay? If this is your mountain, okay, take a look at this one. This is the eggshell plane, eggshell or axial plane, and this is the hinge line where the curve is can be seen best. Okay, these are the limbs. Okay, the hinge zone where you can observe the curvature. Okay, and the least curvature are the limbs. Right. So this is now the illustration. Can you clearly see the illustration?
Yes,
All right.
sir.
Mountain building. We are now in the mountains. Okay. Mountains are formed when the deformation is principally due to tensional stresses. Okay. Tensional stress. This creates crustal thinning and develops rift valleys where the dominant structure are normal faults. If it is normal. Okay. What is again the movement for the normal faults? Okay. What is the movement for the normal fault? This one? The normal fault, it is going on the opposite direction. Okay. In these areas, parallel normal faults okay, we keep on disconnecting. Right. I'm sorry for the technical issues here. Again, parallel normal faults incline in opposite direction form horse engraven. I will let you see what is the form of horse engraven later. Okay, horse are elevated landforms. The one on the top, that's the horse, comprising the mountains and the bounded by normal faults that are inclined in opposite direction. Okay, gravens. Gravens are valleys filled with sediments and bounded by normal faults inclined toward each other. So if you're going to look at it, okay, remember the normal faults. These are the normal faults, okay, because they're actually moving away from each other. When they move away from each other, they're actually creating on the top, that's the horse, okay. On the lower side, this one, it is called the graven. Okay, it will actually form rift valleys and even bodies of water. Okay, this will form mountains. This will be your mountains. Okay, plate tectonics. There you go. Plate tectonics unifies the concept of continental drift theory. Number one, sea floor spreading. Okay, remember that your sea floor is still moving until now, and it is actually it was discussed that the sea floor moves because of this plate tectonics. Okay, magnetic field reversals and other geological and geophysical discoveries. With the aid of computers, the remarkable fit of the continents as contended by Wegener and others was confirmed in 1965. Okay, the studies of plate tectonics was actually led by Wegener and confirmed in 1965. Okay? The theory of plate tectonics states that the lithosphere is not a continuous layer, okay, but consists of several irregularly shaped pieces called tectonic plates. We're actually located, or we are actually standing on these tectonic plates, okay, which may include the oceanic crusts or a continental crusts or both. Okay, these pieces meet along distinct boundaries generally indicated by the seismic and volcanic activities. This is the reason why we have a lot of volcanic activities and seismic activities or seismic waves. Okay, or because there is a movement of these plates. Okay, it is always associated that if there is a movement of plate, there is also a lot of volcanic activity in their area, and there are also a lot of earthquakes there. Tectonic plates are always associated with earthquakes because if there are movements of tectonic plates, there is always an earthquake. Okay, and there is always a volcanic activity in that particular area. Okay, again, pressure must be released. And how can you release the pressure in the asthenosphere? Is through volcanic activities. Okay, this is now the tectonic plates. Okay, Pacific plate is in here. Okay, Eurasian plate, North American plate, Caribbean plate. Okay, Eurasian plate. This is Asian plate. Okay, Pacific plate. This one, Australian plate, Nazca plate, Arabian plate, okay, African plate. So these are the um, justified plates. They had discovered that we are actually, if you're going to look at us, we are in the Pacific Belt Ring of Fire, okay, because we are included in the Pacific plate. Okay, the major plates in the world are the African plate, number one. Please take note. Antarctic plate, Eurasian plate, Indian plate, Australian plate, North American plate, Pacific plate. This is really big. Okay. South American plate, Arabian plate, Caribbean plate, Cocos plate, Juan de Fuca plate, Nazca plate, Philippine plate, and Scotia plate. There are three types of plate boundaries. Take note, these boundaries are based on the relative movement of tectonic plates. Okay. Relative to each other. Okay. With regards to the other plate. Okay. These are the three classification or types of plate boundaries. We have divergent, number one, convergent, number two, and the transform plate boundaries, number three. Again, divergent, convergent, and transform. Okay. Divergent boundary occurs when two tectonic plates move away from each other. If they are moving away from each other, they're actually called as divergent boundary. Okay. Along these boundaries, lava comes out from the center of the ridge and eventually solidifies into basalt. Okay. These effectively produce new oceanic plates as the plates move apart, okay, in the process of seafloor spreading. Take note, the movement of your plate also gives a movement in your seafloor. Okay. This is because of the divergent boundary, because they're actually moving away from each other. Okay. And creating now oceanic plates. As these plates or as the plates pull apart, the lithosphere cracks and producing normal faults. Remember, again, the normal faults, they're actually moving away from each other. The slips along these faults are the primary cause of earthquakes. Okay, we're running out of time. I think we need to continue by next meeting. We had discussed a lot. And I had prepared also something for you in your LMS. What I want you to do now, are you still with me? Holly, MD, Reina, and Margie? All right. What I want you to do now is I want you to go to your LMS. I prepared activity number 2, which is concept analysis. Please do activity number 2, which is concept analysis. I'll be checking your activity after, right? You still have time. Am I making that clear, grade 10?
Yes, sir.
Right. I'll be expecting answers from you. Okay? That's activity number 2. I want you to do all your activities because those are all recorded and graded, all right?
Yes, sir.
Right. I think that will be all for today, class. Thank you for participation, grade 10. We have Holly, MD, Reina and Margie. Have a nice day, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Goodbye. Thank you, sir.
Bye. Take care, everyone.